In all my born days, watching presidential debates, Tim Russert holding that letter up to my wife and telling the American people that that was a letter from me to the archives to cover up records involving her and to make sure none were released by 2009. That is what he said. Do you agree that's what he said? You asked the question, so I'm asking, why did you ask the question? Because of what he said on the debate, right? What did he say? Have I fairly represented what he said?
I think the one was 2012.
Well, no, he used the word 29, but let me just say, truth is, Hillary didn't know what he was talking about. The implication was that in the last few weeks, since she's been a candidate, I had endeavored to cover up records involving her. You agree with that? That was what people thought when they heard that question. Here are the facts. This week, that letter is 5 years old. That letter was about making my records available more quickly than any previous president has ever made them available. Not less. And when I issued that record, the press uniformly complimented me when I sent that very same letter out 5 years ago. They said, this is a great thing. I am not required under the Presidential Documents Law to release anything for 2012. Unlike previous presidents, I have already released 1 million pages of documents, about half of which affect Hillary, the records of the Healthcare Task Force. Second, here's what the letter said. Let's talk about what the letter said, as opposed to what he said. The letter said, I want you to speed up the release of my documents. Don't wait till 2012. Get the show on the road. The archives owns those papers, not me, so they have to review them and organize them and decide what's proper. And I said, of course, there are things I can't control, like if there's a national security implication, don't release them until I look at them or somebody approves them. If there are records relating to presidential appointments and there's something in there that's embarrassing to someone because they didn't get an appointment, don't release that unless I approve it. There's no point in hurting somebody's feelings for something that has no public interest in it. And if there are personal records in there related to my conversations with or interaction with the Vice President and his family, Hillary and our families, and former presidents and vice presidents and their families, don't release them until I review them. It didn't say we wouldn't release them. That's what the letter said. In other words, she was incidental to the letter. It was done 5 years ago. It was a letter to speed up presidential releases, not to slow them down. And she didn't know what he was talking about. And now that I described to you what the letter said, you can readily understand why she didn't know what he was talking about. It was breathtakingly misleading. Now, I don't know whether Tim Russert, I've never seen him deliberately mislead people. So it could be that he just read what was in Newsweek, which is also dead wrong, and believed that because it was in Newsweek, it was the gospel. There was also something in Newsweek, I think, saying that we had said nothing would be released until 2009. That also is not true. We have approximately 300 requests for information from all kinds of things at the archives, maybe a little more. The archives, which I have no control over, right? It's the National Archives. It's not an arm of Bill Clinton's operation. They take all these requests in order. The only one that they have reviewed that came in the early request was one for Hillary's schedule. It will be released in January. What she did for every day for 8 years. It will be released in January, not in 2012, not in 2009, but in January. Why does it take till January? Because the archives is required under the law not to release private information on unrelated parties. For example, we come here today with you. I get a schedule. And if there's an advanced person, there may be a phone number for the advanced person. If it's a private cell phone number, I can't release that. That's their private cell phone number. They just gave it to me so we could do the work. Right? So the person at the archives has to meticulously go through that, take out any information related to the Secret Service. Then you'll have the only early request for information we have. So that's the fact. I never signed a letter saying we wouldn't release information. You already have the Healthcare Task Force. In January, you'll have her scheduled every single day for 8 years. And we will do our best to get all information out that's in our documents consistent with the rules of the archives. The whole thing was a total canard. It was wrong. And you can see I feel strongly about it because I knew. I was sitting there watching that debate saying, There's no way Hillary knows this. I signed a routine letter to the archives 5 years ago trying to accelerate the release of my record, which 5 years later, in a different context, is misrepresented as an attempt to block access to information on my life so that they could play gotcha with her at the end while they were asking other people whether they had seen UFOs, believed there was life on other planets, and what they were wearing for Halloween.